Alrighty, so here with Campbell County Property Assessor Brandon Parton. And Brandon, I was wondering if you could take us through, what the office has been putting out recently regarding floating cabins.
Yes, this is a thing that's been in the process since about 2012. It was first brought up by the county commission, a former county commissioner primarily, wanting these assessed. And at the time, the law just didn't support it. There was too many questionable issues with it. So now we fast forward to this year. With the last couple of years, there have been attorney general opinions, lawsuits, and even an administrative law judge ruling that these are in fact accessible as real property, which has pushed us to go ahead and begin the process. So far to date, we have put on 254. There's still, I think, about 28 more that are left to get out and measure to get the ownership information on too. We obtained a lot of information from TVA as far as the registration or registered owners of these floating homes, and we've found that a lot of that information is actually inaccurate. It's older owners that have sold them within the last couple of years. So we put together a letter to inform the owners that this is something that's going to be coming. We sent that out a couple of weeks ago, and they've been getting returned in the mail by, addresses not deliverable, or don't live there anymore, or something to the effect of that. And that's what's also, like I said, prompted us to realize that they're older addresses or older owners. And a few of the people have actually called back in or sent letters back in informing us of who the new owners are and such. So that's a fight that we're going to have to go down to try to make sure that we have the right people assessed with the right ones. But it's a new process. So we're asking for the owners to kind of assist us with this and help us out with it.
Okay, the floating cabins, is that kind of like the technical term for the floating homes? Is that the same thing?
Yes, the TVA reference to it is floating cabins, so that's what we've picked up as just floating cabins. Floating cabins, floating homes. Some of the things that we've come into is TVA will register or give an FC number or a floating cabin number to some of the ones that are technically deemed not taxable or not accessible as real property due to the fact that they are on a factory built steel hull or they have an engine with a steerage point that has a 180-degree view of the front of the vessel. In other words, they're classified as a navigable vessel by TVA and not a non-navigable vessel. The ones that we are looking at are the ones that are built on site that can't be pulled out of the water and moved someplace else. They may be able to be floated to a different marina. Now, Campbell County is the first one on Norris Lake to start this. I have been told that the other counties will follow suit next year. They're just focusing on, Anderson County is focusing on reappraisal, and the other counties are focusing on some other new things that was also brought up as being taxable as like the campers, which I don't agree with. They're a lot easier moved than the floating homes or floating cabins. So I'm not touching that right now. We're just looking at the floating cabins.
So the floating cabins have to be, I guess, pretty permanently within the Campbell County limits to apply to this?
Correct. It's the ones that are moored at the docks or marinas that are within Campbell County lines.
Okay.
Yes.
Which marinas would those be? That would be...
Lord, there's the ones that actually have them. If I can go up through here, Indian River Boat Dock, Flat Hollow, Shanghai, Alder Springs, Powell Valley, and I know I'm probably going to forget something, but for instance.
What kind of, how much work has this been to put? I'm assuming like it's kind of one of those things where once you get it started, it's not so bad, but getting it started is a lot.
Getting it started and doing it is about equal on this.
Oh, okay.
Because we've, we can't walk on water, so we had to acquire a boat.
Yeah.
And of course, it took some searching to try to find one for the cheapest price. Because I run my budget like it's my own personal money. I'm not going to spend more than what I should. I mean, this is the taxpayers' money. I'm not out here spending it frivolously like most government resources are. So we searched around, we shopped around until we found the biggest bang for the buck, I guess you could say. Once we got it, we had to get the equipment put on it, which is just like life jackets and fire extinguishers and stuff like that. We didn't put depth finders or nothing like that on it. You know, we ain't out there to fish.
Yeah.
But then once we got that done, we had to go around and look at each one of the marinas to try to ID the FC numbers that were on the TVA code or on the TVA listing to what's actually sitting out there. Once we got those done, then we went back out, and you have to physically measure each one of these structures.
Mm-hmm.
So we made a few people mad and a few people curious, because we did actually have stretch tape on each one of these, measuring out the box, measuring out the outside dimensions, I guess I should say, and then getting all that information keyed into our system in the office itself. So it was quite a daunting task.
When did it start? When did you guys start working?
We started on this probably, I would say, 2.5 months ago.
Okay.
Is when we began on this. We really started hitting it really hard within the last month and a half, because I didn't want my employees getting out there and getting the flu if they fell in the water or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Tried to wait until some warmer weather hit.
Yeah.
And then just hit it at a major scope then.
About how many floating cabins are in Campbell County that qualify that meet that requirement to be taxed?
Currently, there's about 274.
Okay.
Now, there may be a few more that we've not really seen yet, but right now we're sitting at about 274.
So what's like the timeline in terms of collection, at least at first?
Well, they should start receiving an assessment change notice this week. They actually went out this week, or yesterday, or today, I'm sorry. They went out today from Nashville, so they should begin receiving them over this week. Then once that value is set, they will receive a tax notice in October. Then it will be payable from that point on. Of course, if they pay early, this is more of a Monty Bullock question, but if they pay early, they get a 2%, 1%, and so on. But it's not last due until February of 2026. The assessment change notices that are being sent out, like I just mentioned, they have a value on it that we feel is fair. We do not want to overassess these homes, just like everybody else's homes within the county.
Right.
We're not here to overassess homes that to try to bring in money. That's not my job. My job is just to place a fair value on the property. Because like I've said before, I don't work for the government. My check comes from the government, but I don't work for the government. I work for the property owners. So when they call in, if they have a problem with the value that we've placed on these floating cabins, they need to call in and just talk with us. You know, we get cussed on the daily and fussed at on the daily, but if you call in, just talk to us, and let's see if we can come up with a fair value that both the owner and the office itself feels comfortable with. It's not a major impact like a lot of people have thought over the last few years. I know we've heard a lot of, it's going to bring in $1 million worth of revenue. No. So far, we're looking at about $130,000 worth of revenue. This is, I think it's $151, $152 for every $50,000 of appraised value on these floating cabins. And that stands true for any home in the county too. They're all taxed about the same, or on the same tax rate. So when they receive this, you know, if it's $50,000 or less, they're looking at about $152 if the tax rate stays the same as last year. I have no power over the tax rate. I feel that the county commissioner are going to do just as fair as possible as they can to the taxpayers too. I expect them to, and they've not failed me yet. So if they are $50,000 or less, they'll be looking at no more than $152 worth of tax dollars. If they're any more than that, then it's $152 for every $50,000 worth of assessed value, so, or appraised value. So.
All right. Well, anything else that you'd like to add? Have there been any concerns from some of the people you've reached out to that own these floating
There has
cabins?
been some concerns that these are quote-unquote personal property and not to be considered as real property. The law actually states on 67.5.501 that boathouses, along with other items, are to be considered as real property and taxed as such. They've even, in the last few years, have removed the verbiage out of the 67.5.802 about movable structures and a square footage, minimum square footage, which also has pushed us more towards the taxation of these floating homes. So it is the law. I'm not out here trying to money grab, nothing like that. You know, I'm sworn under oath to uphold the law of the state of Tennessee, and unfortunately, that's what the law reads, and that's what I have to do.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add?